Hello, one and all, and welcome to Office Hours, where we answer your digital technology, internet, and media-related production questions every single day. Cindy Drozda from Erie, Colorado is our reader today, but for very first, I have a special guest for you today. One of our favorite people, Laura Davidson from Shure, has stopped by because I understand there's a new announcement as of this morning. Laura, what's happening?
It's so exciting because literally an hour ago, Bill, we just launched this brand new wireless MoveMic 88 Plus. Don't belittle her. She's very mighty.
Well, cute is a wonderful thing for microphones. We don't want them to be giant and bulky.
That's true. No, but this is something I've been dying to have for years, since our MV88 Plus, its predecessor, came out. This is the new one.
Ah, nice.
This is the previous one. And now it's wireless. So you're hearing it right now. It is.
Right you're on it. Okay.
Yeah, not this one that I'm throwing all over the place. No. It's so great. It can hear me when I do that.
That would be amazing if it didn't change sound profile while you're waving it around.
Yes, it still stays with me. No, but it does have a very cool feature like its predecessor. You can change its polar patterns. So right now I'm in cardioid because it's right in front of me, but I can change it too. So if I wanted to change its polar pattern to stereo, I can do that as well, which now it's in, let's see, stereo, 60 degrees stereo mode. And then I'll put it back into cardioid. But you can put it into mono bidirectional. So you could do a two-person podcast.
You can do a two-person interview across a table? Oh, my gosh, that's awesome.
You, me. And then raw mid-side for some post-production hacks, which is very handy.
Is it part of boy, I can't even figure out. I'm so amazed at this.
Bill is speechless.
What's the receiver part of this? Is this part of a system? Does it fit into an ecosystem?
It does. Great question. So it's called the MoveMic 88 Plus. So MoveMic is our wireless lavalier system and receiver kit, which this is the receiver. But right now you're hearing it paired to the receiver wirelessly. But you can also pair it directly to your phone. So
kidding.
That's the very cool part. So I'm sorry, I don't have a screen share available, but I have this other one that I'm holding and waving around paired to my phone. And you can see within this app that I can change those polar patterns right from in the app. So
it works directly with your iPhone to form a system for you. So if you're shooting on your iPhone camera, this will feed directly into it?
Correct.
Oh, yes. Man, that's going to be great for a lot of content creators.
Yes. And if you want to use your existing workflow, then you get the receiver kit, and then you're able to go into all of your third-party apps. But we do make the mode of audio and video apps that work with it beautifully and flawlessly.
So clearly you're thinking of content creators and things like that, but who else would be in the market for this kind of a device?
Field recordists. So because it's wireless, think of the places you could put this mic. You can be up to 100 feet away. So if you're out there and you're wanting to capture Foley, or if you're wanting to capture nature sounds, I mean, this thing is extremely powerful, especially because you can put it in stereo mode up to 135 degrees. So it is beautiful, wide, all-encompassing. Put it wherever you need it. So it's not just for that. Fitness applications too. I mean, it's really exciting.
Have you tested it in things like music performances and concerts and things like that? And what kind of results have you gotten?
Yes, absolutely. For choirs, if you think about how many people put up a pair of XYs and just, that's going to be their choir capture, or if they're doing side address, now you can put this up as essentially as high as you want because it weighs nothing, and put it up on a stand and then pair it directly to your phone and be monitoring it. So it's a great application for music. I use it to mic. I have a baby grand piano. I mic my baby grand piano with just this mic, which I had done before with the MV88 Plus. But now that it's wireless, I've actually released a few TikTok videos with it that was in mono bidirectional, where I put it in between me and the piano and I could sing into it and capture the piano. So it's amazing. I'm a little excited in case you can't.
Very cool. Can you talk to us about the powering option? How is it natively powered and what are the possibilities?
Yeah, so it's USB-C, so you just power it on, and it gives you, I believe, 8 hours of battery life. I should know that more than I do, but I'll confirm that for you. It's so new. I don't know all my specs. I'm the worst. And so you charge it directly from this, from your phone, from a power supply, and it holds.
So you've got 8 hours of kind of, let's just start recording, but if you for any reason feel like you're running low, you can just plug in any of the USB power supplies and directly into it, and that'll kind of refresh it.
Exactly.
Perfect. Wow, there's so much there. We've got a lot of people who are interested in asking you questions about it on our panel. Have I missed anything that is a big headline feature or function that you want to talk about before we get to our panelists?
Just not, I don't think so. The wirelessly pairing to your phone, that's kind of the biggest one that we're leaning into for this gig. And
that's both Android and iPhones and things like that. So it's pretty much universal across whatever device somebody has to pair it with.
Absolutely.
All right, great. Let's move to Harshid Trivedi on our panel. Harshid, do you have some questions for Laura?
Absolutely, and it's a pleasure to have you, Laura. And quick question was, I have vision loss, so if I were to say for a talent to send this out to them, would they be able to pretty much, open a box, pair it, as you mentioned, maybe through Bluetooth is what I'm presuming, and or connect it through the wire that's provided? So what's the kind of tactileness of a person that may not have any sight, or is this that easy, just plug and play?
That's a great question. So it is plug and play, and if you're sending it out to a guest, you can actually configure it before you send it. It stores the settings directly to the microphone. So whether you're pairing it again or plugging it in, it remembers those settings. But there's just one single button right on the microphone itself that you push and hold to power on, and keep pushing and holding to get into pairing mode.
Nice.
Awesome. Thank you.
Courtney?
Couple of questions. So it can work mono, multi-directional, so it changes the pattern, the pickup pattern, and sends a single channel signal. And it also works in stereo mode. Does it always transmit in stereo to your stereo receiver? Is it two channels? Or
you can actually select how you want it. If you want it to be in left, right, or if you want it to be in mixed mode, you can select that directly on the receiver.
And on the receivers, then can you pair two of these to the receiver?
One single.
Only
you can pair two MoveMics. Don't get greedy, Courtney. You can pair two MoveMics or one MoveMic 88 Plus. Yes.
Okay. So it'll work in conjunction with the MoveMic 88 Plus. Okay.
Correct. Yes.
Great. And I did notice is that a headphone jack on the bottom, and does it work as a USB interface when it's plugged in over USB?
Correct. It does. Can you see that?
Kind of. So, and then now that headphone, is it fed locally from the microphone, or is it fed back over the USB connection?
It is fed locally from the microphone.
So there's no delay.
Right.
It's an analog connection.
Correct.
Sounds great.
Nigel, you had a question?
Yeah, so if I want to feed from that mic into a camera, I assume I need the MoveMic receiver, which I think is a separate product.
Correct.
And is that the only way to get from that mic into my camera?
Yes.
Wirelessly, obviously.
Yes. So you would, with the kit, it comes with a 3.5 millimeter cable, and then you would plug out from the output here into your camera.
Two things I'm curious about that we haven't covered yet. Number one is the band that it operates on and what kinds of transmission and receiving.
Right. So it is our proprietary Bluetooth audio pairing when it is going directly to your phone, and it's 2.4 gigahertz to the receiver.
Got it. And what about the big question, price point? Where are you aiming this?
So it's good price point in terms of the options that you have. So if you're going for just the MoveMic 88 Plus, that's going to set you back $299 US. $299. Don't call me on that. And then if you are, that's happened to me before. And then, $2.99. If you're going for the kit, the full kit, which comes with the MoveMic, the receiver, and all the cables that you need to charge it, so on, and get into your camera, $449 is the kit price.
And for mounting and things like that, I'm imagining that's a diameter that's probably common to handheld mics. So any kind of mic mount on a stand or whatever, you're probably in good shape there, right?
Yes, it does come with a clip. I'm trying to see, of course, the only clip I have within arm's reach is a wireless clip, and that it's a big one. So let's not use that, but sure, it actually does work in there. And this is a big clip. So yes.
Okay, so pretty much anything anybody who uses microphones will have around will probably work to mount this as you need. And plus all the rest of the clamps and things like that grip people are so excited to have a bag full of. Excellent, excellent. we're really excited about this. This seems like the kind of product that a lot of people are going to get utility about. How long has this been in development? Have you been working on this idea in the back room for a long time?
We came out with the MV88 Plus, right? Not long after I joined the company, and that was about 7 years ago. I think it was about 6 years for MV88 Plus, which again is this one right here, which we still make, and it's a great product. And the wireless version, once we made MoveMic, we knew that this was now within reach, pun intended. And so it's been in development for quite a while because we like to take our time at Shure. We want to make sure that it's right and that it's going to fit the needs. So it's been a minute.
I think there are going to be a lot of people who are going to be very excited about this, particularly those young content creators who are looking for a light mobile rig that you can get out there, get your content, have it sound good, because as we are always proselytizing about here, if you have even great video and lousy sound, you're going to be in deep trouble. If you have okay video but superb sound, you are way ahead of the game in terms of communication possibilities. So, Laura, thank you so much for coming on today and letting us know. Can you stay a while and just field in case somebody in our audience group has questions about either this system or anything that Shure produces and markets?
Absolutely.
That you might have questions. Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent. All right. We're going back to Cindy Drozda now. We'll have our first generic question for the day. Cindy, what's on tap?
Coming to us through the QR code, Kent from Madison, Ohio is asking, as someone new doing an audiobook recording, what do you recommend that we have, software and gear? What we have on hand is Davinic Resolve and a new Shure MV7 Plus. Any recommendations would be great to have. Thanks.
So, as you may know, I do some audiobook work, and I will tell you that the landscape is as wide as you can possibly imagine. If I mention any software, the people in the other camps, but people use free things like, we've heard Reaper a lot. What else do people use? People use all sorts of things for audiobooks. You know, audio recording is a very precise science, but it's not a particularly gigantic lift like 8K video or something like that eats up massive amounts of resources. So there are a lot of things. I actually record all of my audiobooks in the voiceover module in Final Cut. Now, I'm probably the only person in the world that's doing that, but it's really basically a subset of Logic, and all the major audio DAWs, all the major video programs that have audio are pretty much these days capable of good quality audio recording. There are specific things. We hear Studio One and a few other things constantly in the community for people who are doing their books, but really it comes down to personal preference. The one that's best for you, I have always heard said, and I believe this 100%, is the one you're most familiar with and know how to operate, because any kind of creator, the goal you have is to get the technology and the tool set out of your way so that you can perform. And I think that's true of musicians, it's true of audiobook readers, it's true of anybody trying to make content. You want to get away from the stuff and get to what you're trying to perform. And as long as you have some process that's recording it faithfully, and that the back-end process, if you're editing and you're mastering and you're getting something ready for actual sale out on the internet or sending it out to the world for consumers, you just want it to be right. And whatever works for you, I think, is the best tool for that. Courtney has some thoughts here. Courtney?
Yeah, I was just going to say, since you have Davinic Resolve 18 or 19, I hope, you have Fairlight's recording and editing and playback and sound modification software built in there. So if you just track into the Fairlight section of Resolve, even if you're not using video at all, you could use that, and it would lead you to be more competent with Fairlight for using it to edit the audio on your videos as well. So that might be a good place to start. And Fairlight is fairly, they've been in audio recording and playback for, decades. So they know a lot about it and do quite a good job. I've worked in many recording studios that just use Fairlight as their main recorder, not Davinic Resolve, but the Fairlight recording setup. So I think you're in pretty good hands there. You could use something else to track with and edit with if you like. But if you're familiar with the audio side of Davinic Resolve, that's all Fairlight.
And I will also mention, a lot of people talk about Audacity because I think it's an open source software program that is virtually free, if not free. I think it's one of those things that has been maintained for a long time. And a lot of people start out there and seem to have really good results with it. So you don't have to buy a huge program if you want to explore this kind of thing. All right, hopefully that took care of things, Kent. Let's go to our next question.
Here's one from Craig Kadoki in Toronto. When using multiple networks at the same time on a Mac, is there a way to select only one network to track in Activity Monitor, or is there another app needed?
I'm not the best network guy here. I think this is one of those questions where if you came back on Friday, our technical people on Friday, it's an amazing panel, and they know things like networking at an incredible level. I've used Activity Monitor a good bit as a Mac guy, but I'm not sure I'm going to understand how to do that with network. Am I thinking about two different programs here? Network check and Activity Monitor. I don't ever do that. I use Activity Monitor to see what my computer is doing, what my Mac is doing specifically, and what kinds of processes are running that might be eating up memory and capacity, but never for the network stuff. I think there might be other tools for that, but I'm going to be a certain degree ignorant about that. And I would suggest sneak back with this question, Craig, on Friday, and you will find Jonas and some of the other people we have that are just astonishingly talented at network management and things like that. So, next question.
Andy Kokendorfer in Viera, Florida, USA is asking, thoughts on the new software encoder, Meld, apparently coded by folks tired of OBS shortcomings, with a link.
Courtney Gooden's going to weigh in on this. Courtney?
Well, I just took a brief look at it, and it seems interesting. Oops, sorry. I just had that fading feeling. No, here it is. I'm curious of their business model, if there is one, because it looks like it does many similar things to OBS, as well as supporting Twitch, YouTube, Streamer.bot, and a lot of other streaming services built in, if you just watch the little demo play here. But it is curious up here. It says 100% free, no watermarks, and no limits. So what's their business model? How are they making money off of this? Or are they making money off of this? Or is it just completely open source? And I don't know how they're going to make money on this. If so, I haven't downloaded it to try it out, and I'm not sure if it's cross-platform or not. So I guess we'll have to see. I'll have to read further because I haven't had enough time to research it here. But it looks interesting. If it's solid and doesn't have as many of the problems that OBS has on different platforms, that would be great.
Reminds me of the old joke, we're losing money on each sale. How are we going to turn that around? And the other person says, volume. Next question.
Brian Taylor in Washington, D.C. comes to us through the QR code. Zoom app audio on Tricaster Elite 2 routes Zoom audio to the APPS fader. However, Riverside.fm doesn't, but YouTube in the same browser does. What gives?
Well, those are the ways those two programs are coded obviously are different. I've found a lot of circumstances where I would expect a program or even a little subroutine or something like that to see the audio on all the buses on my system, and yet for some reason it doesn't see B, but it sees A just fine. Sometimes that's programmable. You can go into your deeper settings in your computer and figure out how to open a port or open a connection to that. But I can't tell you the number of times over the course of the years that I've run into that circumstance. And I'm always hit or miss as to whether I can get the right audio routed. Also, if you're running into this now, Brian, give it a little bit of time. And if you're not critical in terms of delivery of things, look back and see if you can update software or inits. I've had a lot of circumstances where something did not work for a month or two after it was released, and then suddenly they reprogram the code in it. There's a software update available, and suddenly that thing that wasn't possible becomes possible. Let's go to our next question.
Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas asks, in general, which Synology apps are most useful on your iPhone or Android phone?
Got some opinions from Nigel Dessau. Nigel?
So in general, I don't use my phone to get to my Synology NAS. I tend to manage my Synology NAS through a Chrome interface. My experience of the other apps is it really depends what you use your Synology for. If you use it for photos, if you use it for one of the thousands of different applications you can find, then you go find the desktop or phone application that works with that. Photos would be a good example. But if all you're using it as a storage system, then the web UI is probably the easiest way to do it.
Thank you, Nigel, and thank you for the question, Paul. Next question.
From Jeff Cohen in Miami Beach, Florida. Does StageTimer.io offer sufficient design customization for higher-end event timer integrations previously discussed on the show?
Every time somebody who has used it a lot mentions Stage Timer here, they're always glowing about it. So my guess is yes, but you say sufficient, and that's kind of a judgment call. So the question is, what do you really need? I know that I have been backstage on a lot of big events where I think they've been using Stage Timer or something else for their run of show clocks and communication kind of with the people who are speaking on stage. But I haven't used it in quite a while, so I'm not really sure what the current state of the art is. Everything evolves so quickly now. Nobody else seems to have much experience here with Stage Timer. So, Jeff, all I can suggest is that you give it a run. I don't think it's a particularly expensive program. At least the last time I remember looking at it, it was pretty reasonable. So maybe it's one of those things where you give it a shot, see if it works. And if it turns out to be great, or maybe it doesn't do everything you need, come back to the show and let us know about that. That's what this community is all about, trying to continually and constantly learn the state of now in our industry. Let's go to the next question.
Next one's from Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana. Does self-deprecating humor work in corporate media? How about as an opening with a YouTube link?
And Nigel, what do you think?
Well, first of all, I think that wasn't self-deprecating humor in the video link. That was Ben Stiller doing a bit. Self-deprecating humor, to me, is when you make more of an insult against yourself. My favorite one is a thought just crossed my mind, not a long journey. And if you use that sort of self-deprecating humor well in a presentation, particularly a live presentation, it can be very useful. It shows some level of not lack of arrogance. You know, self-deprecating humor done well, it works in live presentations. But it's like all humor. If you're not funny, don't use it. Humor's really hard to use. I don't know how well it works in virtual events because it doesn't, to me, wouldn't come across the same way. Obviously, insult humor is worse. But if you can find a way of being modest, it can make an audience more attractive to you.
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, the clip he's talking about is during the Academy Awards, where this was the award for production design. So it was a bit self-deprecating in that it showed a problem with the production design of the stage, where Ben Stiller's elevator, where he comes up out of the floor, gets stuck halfway, and then it goes up and down, and he's trying to announce the award for best production design. And meanwhile, the production design is going wrong all the time. So, you know, sometimes that can work, and sometimes that just draws attention to the production designer. Probably wasn't very happy with that show.
I actually laughed a lot at that because they really, whoever the art director was, directed it brilliantly. At some point, it was just his head peeking out. He was delivering his lines
out of the pit,
and he had to climb at the end
to get to the microphone and
so I found it amusing. Again, kind of everybody on that watching that show kind of was in on the inside joke because we know his personality. We know basically he's a comedian at heart, although now he's a highly successful producer.
And I've been faced with that many times, and we have, as a member of the longtime member, for 40-year member of the Sound and Video Union, at our union meetings, we have in a big room with PA amplification and sometimes video, and invariably there will be some segment where a microphone doesn't work or feedback doesn't work, and somebody's messing with it, and here's a room full of professional audio technicians, and nobody can get the microphone to work. And
did somebody shout, does anybody know how to fix this in this room?
I think there's somebody here that knows how to fix this, and there never is. And it kind of falls flat.
Yeah.
Wants to get up and be embarrassed, so it's kind of a problem.
I've got to say, humor is the most subjective thing that you run into. I'll do this really quickly, but I was I was a young person. I got a chance to go to school in England for just a summer, and there was a young lady I was interested in, so we went to a movie, and we thought we were going to go see Anne of 1,000 Days. It seemed like a perfect thing to be on a date with and someone in England, and we didn't know the culture, so we go to Anne of 1,000 Days. We turned the wrong direction, and we ended up in a movie called Carry On Up the Jungle, which is a broad English farce kind of comedy. And the thing that I came away with is that every time the two of us laughed, the rest of the audience was totally silent. And every time the audience cracked up and howled, we were there looking at each other going, what? And so it fixed in my mind that humor is cultural, it's generational, there are so many elements to it. It is not one thing. So it can be very, very, very difficult to know something's funny unless your audience agrees it's funny. Nigel, you had another thought?
I just wanted to see you in a Carry On movie, which was a 15-something year run of movies, which today would get you cancelled for mentioning it in public.
Totally. And,
but the humour that most UK people have to be most nervous of is sarcasm.
Oh, yeah.
Because sarcasm, which is very prevalent in the UK, as my wife would tell you many times about me, comes off in the US as insulting. And so there are different types of humour that really, as somebody said in the comments, really do not transfer across culture.
Yeah, and culture evolves. Something that I did a corporate video once upon a time, and I was working for a company that had a very rough corporate culture. It was a meatpacking group, big company, huge budgets. But the humor that they injected into their script, I thought was incredibly offensive. But then they said, no, these are guys who sit on an assembly line and kill cows all day long, and they have a very, very rough sense of humor. And this is right for that audience. Didn't end up working for them for long because I didn't want to see that all day long. But in their defense, they understood their corporate culture, and that's what this sensitivity to understand who is the audience you're talking to and what is going to light them up and what is going to offend them. And when you're talking to everybody, that becomes much more difficult because we all know that there's a lot of different constituencies out there, and taking care of all of their needs is very difficult. It's a difficult balance to hold. Next question.
Next up is Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas. Is this a good guide to the different roles on a movie production? Link provided.
He's got something from Backstage.com magazine about film crew hierarchy, and that is something where usually you learn that on the streets, so to speak. Courtney, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I take a look at it. I guess it's good. Here's what the website looks like. It's from Backstage, and they have a list of links. And there's a list of links. I don't know if I can get back to the top because it's very long, of all the positions on a crew here. And there's this jump list here of what do producers do? What do directors do? What do the cast do? What does the camera department? Oh, I'd love to see what producers do. There are 15 producers now listed on every movie, and I'm not sure what any of them are doing. But like on the camera department, this helps definitions. So if you want to know the titles of the different positions in the department, this gives you a breakdown of their basic responsibilities in that position. What the first camera assistant is responsible for, and what's the second camera assistant do, and what's the DIT or digital imaging technician do. This just gives you a basic overview. It doesn't, go very deep into any of those responsibilities. It just names them. So if you're curious when you're reading the credits what a best boy grip does, it might give you that information. So for the layman, it's a good guide to what everyone does. Then if you want to get any deeper into explore any of those positions further as to their responsibilities, you have to almost intern or go to some other sources to get that information. But it's a good overview, I guess, of all those people. And I'm going to be reading what the producers do later, see if they even got it.
Also, if you want to get questions into the show at any time, don't forget our QR code. Let me pull it up for you. And once I do that, understand that you can shoot this, or you can just type into any browser anywhere, askofficehours.global, and that will kind of put you into the queue. Somebody in the back end of the show will look at it, make sure it's formed correctly and is understandable, and then that becomes our questions. And once the questions are in our system, particularly in the overall system, you can vote on those questions. And that's how we program the show. The questions that you are the most interested in get the most votes, and we get to them quicker and spend the most time on them. So using this QR code, or again, typing in askofficehours.global is the quickest kind of shortcut way into that system. And you don't even have to be in the full Mukana system, which requires you to sign up for office hours. We hope you do that because we think there's a lot of benefits. You'll get an email every day that tells you what the show is all about for that day and so on and so forth. But that's how the system works. Get your questions in, and we'd love to answer them. Next question.
Pedro G. Gonzalez III in Washington, D.C. is asking, finally able to see the Oscars and was disappointed. For the Tech Awards, they cut off their mics and played them off the stage so soon. And this was after they praised L.A. workers at the beginning of the show. Was this on purpose?
Courtney, do you think it was on purpose?
No, there's always a problem, and the guy that got cut off was for the sound award, so that was doubly embarrassing. And the problem is when there are, for example, the Academy Award for Sound is just one award, and within that one award, there's the production mixer, his crew, boom operator, the post-production mixer, and maybe there's a separate award for sound editing, I think. But so there's at least three people that are receiving that awards, and they don't work necessarily directly with each other. Production and post-production are two different mixers, and sometimes they're competitive. And so when they come up on stage to receive the award, maybe both of them want to say something. They don't normally elect one of them because they're kind of in two different departments, but for one award. So it gets problematic when both of them want to say something and the orchestra doesn't know that they haven't, appointed one person to speak. And then by the time the second or the third person gets up to, thank their wife and kids, the playoff music starts and unfortunately the audio guy killed his mic once the playoff music starts. So it's kind of embarrassing. It's better now. I think for a few years there, they had all the creative arts in a separate awards ceremony that wasn't necessarily televised, or it wasn't televised in prime time, that's for sure, where they would give out the awards to, costuming and sound and some of the non-actor, director, producer awards on top. So although they gave out a lot of technical awards, now they've moved a lot of those tech awards back to the main. After a lot of consternation and a lot of letter writing campaigns, they've moved a lot of those technical awards back into the main program itself. And that's why it was 3.5 hours long. And it was mainly a move by the networks to try and cut down the length of the program. And that's why they eliminated a number of the awards. And that's why they so tightly try to limit the amount of time you have for doing your acceptance speech to 45 seconds. And that's not a lot of time. And a lot of actors, Adrian Brody, I'm talking to you, went way over. The orchestra had to play him off twice.
Yeah, that was a little much. And I couldn't believe it started at 4:00 in the afternoon, and 3 hours and 25 minutes. I was looking at this thing is still going on.
All the people with DVRs missed the big awards because they were after the 3 hour mark. Yeah.
Well, listen, this is live. And any of us who've worked in live know that you do the best you can under the circumstances. But I used to videotape a lot of the people of the National Speakers Association, and they all had time limits too. And you could always tell the people who were not fully prepared because their 8-minute slot would take 18 minutes for them to get through their content. And once you're on stage, it's easy. When I was first doing any kind of public speaking, I would do the same thing. You'd have all this stuff timed out and you think you could get it done in that amount, but you get up on stage and the next thing you know, you're 20, 30, 50% over your allotted time. And it's just real easy for that to happen. These are professionals, though. You'd think at their salaries, maybe they could figure out how to discipline themselves a little better about that. Let's go on to the next question.
From Harshid Trivedi in Daytona Beach, Florida, USA, and on the panel today, Can the Move 88 be used without installing the apps like Motive?
Let's see. If only we had someone on the panel today who knew something about the Shure Motive products. Who would? Oh, Laura Davidson.
Oh, yes. Thanks for the question. And so, yes, it can work without the Motive apps if you're using it with the receiver, especially. That's kind of the workflow that you pair it wirelessly to your receiver, and then you can use it in any app that you choose. And if you plug it in with the USB-C cable, it will overtake the mic in my phone. I just tested it. So if anyone in the back was looking at me messing with things over here, that's what I was doing. Probably making them nervous. But yes, you can use it without our apps.
And fully confirmed because Laura actually did it. I'm really fascinated about this. I think you getting into the phones is a huge play. And I know whenever I travel anymore, I just am so tired of carrying around big bags of stuff, and the simplest stuff that works with what I already own and gets jobs done gets very high ratings on my what do I need to keep and own and take with me when I'm shooting stuff. Next question.
Alexander Knight in Port Coquitlam, BC asks, what do you think of the Vista Vision film format, which hasn't been used in decades, but was resurrected director Brady Corbet for The Brutalist, starring Adrian Brody?
Courtney Gooden, you've been in Hollywood for a long time. What do you think about Vista Vision?
Yeah. Well, Vista Vision was invented even before my time. That's a long time ago. As one of the first widescreen formats before CinemaScope and the anamorphic type formats came about. It's a horizontal format in 35 millimeter. So it's kind of like the 35 millimeter equivalent of 15 perf IMAX, where the film moves through the gate horizontally. It's problematic for editing, because it's a film format and can be digitized now. That's not as big a problem as it used to be, because to use it in editing, they'd have to do optical conversion to be able to edit it, because most editing systems aren't set up for horizontal format. But now he revived it because I think I don't know if he shot any of it in 15 perf 65 millimeter and just used Vista Vision on some of the smaller shots, because they're fairly compatible back and forth between the two because of the aspect ratio and the fact of the horizontal film movement. Vista Vision used to be used a lot in visual effects before digital visual effects. They would shoot in Vista Vision when they were doing optical effects because they had a bigger frame and it had higher grain. Tighter grain than the regular standard 35 millimeter format. So they could move around and pick a standard 35 millimeter frame, 133 frame out of that Vista Vision frame. So it let them reposition things and gave them finer grain if they're going to be using optical effects in post-production. So it used to be used a lot by visual effects. They used a lot of it in Star Wars, for example, the original Star Wars. So it's interesting that he chose that as a format, but since they're digitizing it, it can be edited electronically nowadays without the original problems. But, you still have to optically print it if you're going from the original negative back to another cinema negative to get it output. So it's an interesting format. Gives you a little more real estate and finer grain than standard 35 millimeter production.
Next question.
Next one's from Ian Alford in London. I need to live switch a couple of Sony A7 III cameras for IMAG in a house of worship using MimoLive on a M4 MacMini to add video overlays. They are a startup with no budget. Should I use an ATEM Mini or a couple of Ultrastudios or something else?
Well, a lot of us have a lot of success with ATEM Minis. It's an incredibly useful tool for doing something like a live switch for that. But I'm also a little bit confused here. You say you have no budget, but you've got Sony A7 IIIs, you've got IMAG, you've got some sort of projector system, you're running M4 MacMinis and things like that. It seems like a disconnect. It may be that the hardware investment you're making, you weren't paying attention to the fact that human capital is the one thing that ties all the hardware together. And I think this is a circumstance where you may want to find somebody locally and maybe sneak out a little bit of the budget to give them a look at your system. It's very hard for all of us who are in various places in the world and may or may not have experience with these individual things to figure out the best advice for wiring and implementing a system that can be very specific to your needs. But Nigel, you had a thought here?
Yeah, I'm just trying to decode exactly what they're asking, but I would tell you that if you can set up eCam is a cheap way of doing this. MimoLive, all of these things, at any level, you're going to have to pay for that piece of software. But if what you're trying to do is get titles and other images on, obviously OBS is the free way of doing it. You've really got to get those cameras into your computer and switch them from there. So that might be another solution.
Yeah, I mean, I use Keynote a good little bit, just feeding into my ATEM Mini through an iPad. And for titles and overlays, it works perfectly well. And if I had something on my screen that I could show you, I could pop a button and it would replace my picture that simply. So the hardware solution is not particularly complex, nor today particularly expensive. But again, working it into your system and making sure that the signals that are being generated, I don't know how you're going into your IMAG system. I don't know whether you're splitting it off to record the services as well as project them for the live crowd. There's just a whole lot of complexity in there that makes it more complex than simply just buy this, put it in line, and everything's going to work just fine. Good luck with it, Ian. And if you have more questions, keep coming back and we'll do our best to help you through them all. Next question.
Here's one from Zach Stallsmith in Chautauqua, New York. I'd like to use Zowieboxes to send NDI signal around a building that will primarily be a vmix output. Can I simply plug these into a switch or router and set up the signal flow that way?
I would imagine so. I mean, I don't see anything in the forming of your question that causes me to think, oh, there's no way that would work. But, and I say this with all humility, I can't tell you the number of times that I've approached some sort of process and said, that should work. And I hook up everything according to the way it should be hooked up, and I press the button and I get a black screen. For some reason, whether it was EDID problems or copy protection or whatever, something that I expected to work just fine didn't work at all. So not unusual. But from what I've heard being here as a part of Office Hours for the last 4 years, it doesn't seem like there's anything in there that would preclude being able to add those into a thing. If you're in the Mukana system, I imagine there's some chat about it. I don't have that up today because of a different configuration. But take a look there, and maybe some of the real experts who hang out in our Discord all the time or in Mukana have been discussing this and have alternate suggestions for you. Next question.
Kenny Hampton in Greenville, Illinois asks, focusing on Shure microphones, are there special mics that would be of most interest to a collector, not so much to use, but for collector value?
Oh, this is a good question. I'm excited to hear your answers. Laura Davidson.
Yes, that's a great question. It's a fun one. I mean, they're all collector's items in my mind, but this one is especially cool.
Oh.
This is the 5575 LE, and it was made for our 75th anniversary of the Unidyne mic. As you can see, it's got this cool vintage look, and there were a very limited number made, and they're all numbered. So that one, I mean, it's meant to kind of be a desk. It works, but it's meant to be kind of a desk ornament. So that one would be a really cool piece to have. Hey,
Laura, is there a serial number like buried in an SM57 or 58 where somebody could look when it was from and we could have a contest of who has the oldest still functioning SM57?
Well, we didn't serialize them. It's an interesting thing. Serializing has been kind of a recent thing that we've done with our mics. So I don't know how you would do that. You'd have to send it in probably, but there's no tell that I'm aware of. But don't hold me to that. I can find out and get you an answer.
Yeah, I wonder if there was like they switched from green to black in 1953 or something like that. I bet you people are obsessive about these microphones and love them. And I in the drawer over there, I have 257s that used to be in a matched kind of presidential podium set that I've had for 30 years and probably longer now that I think about it. So, yeah, it'd be hard to figure out where the oldest. I will say one thing for sure. Longevity has never been an issue with your company's products.
No, and we just hit 100 this year, or we will next
old.
month officially. So, yeah, we know how to make things that last.
Absolutely. Courtney, you had an additional question?
Yeah, if you open up the SM58, the wires are insulated with cotton.
That one's old.
You got a vintage mic on your end.
Was that before the invention of nylon or something?
Well, all the rubber was going to the war.
Okay. Yeah, a wartime cotton-clad Shure 58. Next question.
Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana. If the new Shure Mic records on board the mic, what software is used to unload the files?
Can you talk us through the workflow process, Laura?
Yes, it does not actually record directly to the mic. So let's not spread that rumor. It records directly to the device that you are paired with or through the receiver to whatever workflow you're using. So it does not record directly to the device or the receiver.
That's interesting. So there's no one of those micro SD card things that you have to worry about.
No.
Flopping in and out. Okay.
No. So you're meant to use your device as the recording source.
Understood. Courtney, you had a follow-up?
One question I had about the new one that has the USB interface into it as well. What bit rate and bit rate,
that's MV7.
bit depth and sample rate does it send over USB? Is it 24 16 or 24 selectable, or is it 32 float, or is it?
It's not 32 float.
Okay.
But I can't remember the exact specs for the MV7i. I think it's selectable.
And how many versions of the MV7 are there now?
There are several. So we have the MV7X, which is the XLR only variant. We have the MV7 Plus, which is the one I just spun around like a dummy pretending it was the MV7i. And then we have the MV7i, which is the MV7 with a built-in interface.
There you go. All right.
Yes.
Next question.
Panelist Harshid Trivedi in Daytona Beach, Florida, USA asks, thank you, Laura Davidson. Since we brought up phones, including the Move 88, what other mics can be connected to a phone like Galaxy S, Pixels, iPhones, and others? One item that came to mind was the X2U, just trying to figure multi-solutions.
Laura?
Yeah, good question. So the MVX2U is not MFI rated, or MFI, so it's not made for iPhone technically. But there are other ways of getting into devices. You can use the Motive line of microphones as well. So the MoveMics specifically that has the lavaliers that will pair directly without a receiver. So that, and then our MV88 Plus, which is the predecessor, which is micro USB to Lightning or USB, and comes with a whole kit that looks like this.
Oh, that's cute. So it's got a little mini tripod that you can, and then some sort of holder for it. Nice.
Yeah. And then a shoe mount that is currently holding my MoveMic 88 Plus.
Down below that you're actually using to reach us today. So that's what you've been listening to, and Laura's been on the whole day this morning.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Cool. Next question.
Next one's from Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana. How many of the Shure MoveMics can be used in the same space at the same time if using receivers?
Laura, thoughts?
Yeah. So you can pair two microphones to your receiver at one time, and then it depends on how many ports you have that you could use the receivers with. So 2 mics to each receiver if using the lavaliers, 1 mic to each receiver if you're using the MoveMic 88 Plus. I hope that answers. And
so since this is a Bluetooth connection, you're not dealing with wireless issues of messing with frequencies that are in, those kind of things.
Well, when you're paired to the receiver, it is 2.4. So you do have a tendency to have that. I mean, I would not recommend this for multiple wireless microphone applications. It's meant for single, dual, maybe 4, but I wouldn't really push it past that.
So that 10-person panel on stage, probably not the right solution for that.
Probably not. We do make some pretty serious wireless that can accommodate that. Yeah,
absolutely. But you're in a different class and a different area and a different budget range.
Definitely.
Next question.
Vincent Alvarez in Bellingham, Washington, USA asks, this mistake flashed during the Oscar broadcast. Can you tell what may have caused this? It only lasted maybe 1/3 of a second. Link provided.
Oh, did anybody follow the link and pull it up again? I'm in a limited circumstance here today with some stuff back and getting repaired, so I don't have my normal graphics feed. I'm not seeing anybody who has that up here.
Here.
Oh, there we go. Courtney does. That looks like it's a
Somebody
standard
cut the color
NTSC color bar array partially switched over the main signal.
I think
So-
that's a TD or a switcher glitch.
Yeah.
I think a TD may have hit the wrong button and discovered it just a half a second later and hit it back again. Or something was set up in a mixed bus, 3 buses down, an effects bus. And
Right.
it was the wrong effects bus or something that went halfway between a color bar.
You ever seen a big production switcher for something like the M? You hit a lot of buttons, and everything's moving very fast. And boy, if you hit the wrong one at the wrong time.
There are like 7, effects buses or something
Yeah.
to deal with.
Somebody in the chat here said truck bars came up. So yeah, it could have been something at the signal was exiting the building and going through a truck and up to satellite. So there are a lot of potential problem points in any live broadcast, and it could have snuck into any one of those, I would imagine. Let's go to the next question.
Next one is from Idris Haji in Fairfax, Virginia. I was invited to help for a school band. For a beginner, learning to set up Zoom Live 12-track mixer recorder for a small band, what is the best way, audio chain, to prepare for a 4-piece band, and what tool do you use to troubleshoot sound levels? Thanks.
Okay, you're in a pretty complex world here, but I'll tell you a couple of things that I learned from my time in the field recording friends who were doing music and things like that. 12-track recordings, there's a couple of things you want to kind of figure out. You've got a school band, so you're going to have multiple microphones probably, although you're not going to have each instrument or each performer mic'd. So you're going to have probably area coverage of mics. Now, the one thing that I learned really early is, are you just doing it for the broadcast or are you recording? And as a recordist, for me, I always wanted to have as many ISO feeds as I could have, which is to say, if there was a mic back when percussion was playing, I'd want that to be recorded separately from the overheads over the brass section, or if there was a choir or something like that, the mics for them. Because when you're doing things for live sound, I found this over and over again. If I just captured the live performance and what was coming off the board, I was never satisfied at all with the sound of it. And I always said to myself, that darn bass drum is just too loud. I wish I could bring it down. But when you have just area mics like that, you don't have any flexibility. So pretty quickly, I started taking splits out of the board, doing patch cables that would insert a split and get a particular track from a particular mic and record that to one channel of the audio recorder. And then a different mic in a different section, I would move to another thing. And the point of that is that if one of the signals had more or less of the content I was trying to increase or diminish, I'd want to have a slider that related to that sound. So that's when you're getting into recording what are called stems in a lot of businesses. You're trying to separate sound types so that you can manipulate them later to get the final mix you want, because the final mix for the audience is going to often be very, very different than what you want on a recording. And for me, I learned really quickly that the performance happens now and it's over. The recording can last for months or weeks or years. Even if you're doing something as simple as recording in a school for a small band or something like that, the audience potentially of those in the room who want to hear it well is important. But it may be that a lot of people are going to want to have copies of that as an archive from their kids' performance or stuff like that. So it's equally important, maybe even a little bit more important, to try to get a good sounding product at the end of that. And if for some reason your mixing in the room for the moment isn't good enough for the recording, I just want as many options as possible for that. That's how I kind of always approached it. Courtney, your thoughts?
The Zoom 12-track recorder, I can't remember how many mic, maybe it has 4 mic preamps. So you may be limited in the number of microphones you have access to with that particular recorder. It also depends, you didn't say whether you're doing PA or not. If you're having to amplify that stuff in the room for an audience, a live audience that's there in the room, that's a whole different thing than setting it up for recording. So you have to take consideration of the placement of the speakers and keeping the speakers from feeding back into the microphones and choosing the correct microphones to avoid feedback, etc. So I think, you're a day early on this. I think if you come back on audio day, resubmit this question, and we'll have a lot more audio experts for doing live sound here probably, and can advise you a lot better on what to do with the tools that you have available for that 4-piece band. So come back on audio day, resubmit this question, and hopefully you'll get a more cogent answer from the panel at that point.
Yeah, I just reread and I understand. So 4-piece band, I don't know why, but I was thinking of more the school band kind of thing. A 4-piece band, you're legitimately possible to make sure that each player has some sort of microphone positioned close to that player that's not getting a ton of bleed from everybody else. And that way you can kind of isolate them. If it's a rock-type band and they have amplified instruments, you're going to maybe have the difficulty of their levels that the microphones are picking up are wildly variable. I've had a lot of recordings come back where an overly turned up bass, because they love that low end, and I just had to figure out how to address that and get it properly set in the mix rather than dominating everything. But that's where you start learning. Regardless, Idris, make sure that you just have fun. I mean, it's going to be a lot of work. You're going to get out there, you're going to be nervous and the rest of that. But at some point, when you've got everything set up the best you can, my best advice for you is to just enjoy the process, even if it's not perfect, because you want to encourage yourself to go do it again and again and again. And that's how every professional I know, that's the process they've gone through. At some point in doing this, they moved away from it being a hassle and moved it to being exciting for them. And that causes them to do it again and again and again and again. And that's how professionals are built. You just got to put in the work, do the reps. I believe that is the last question we had in here at the end of the day. Laura, thank you so much for sticking around. Thank you for being here. It's great to see you.
Great to see you as well. Thanks for having me.
We are looking forward to the next time Shure has some information, you being on the show and helping us understand it. And I'm sure that other people in the coming days will have things. And so we'll ping you if anybody has a question that comes up after the fact, because some people do time shift this. For our standard thank yous, we truly appreciate everybody who makes this show possible every day. That includes all the panelists who showed up here today and who have showed up every day over the course of our many, many, many broadcasts. We're getting close to our 2,000th daily broadcast without a miss. We're very proud of that record. I think we may be one of the most consistent shows in terms of producing this kind of thing every single day that's out there. And it wouldn't happen without our panelists. It wouldn't happen without those of you who are watching the show, who are tuned in every day and who ask the questions, our producers. Your questions always inspire us and help all of us learn. I mean, that's one of the greatest pieces of being a panelist for me, is that I am more conversant with more different topics than I've ever been before, just because I have the benefit of being able to sit here and listen to very smart people talk all day long. So thank you to all of you who ask questions and generate that conversation, and to our amazing back-end crew. There's a lot of names you'll see scroll through here at the end of things. These are people all over the world who have contributed to this show and will continue to. And when the show ends, the work doesn't stop. And I want to particularly single out our incredible back-end system and all the people there who are working on future shows, who are working on producing some of the shows that we have coming up that are at different time spaces and things like that. There's a lot of effort that takes into putting this content out every single day, and it takes a village, and it is a big, incredibly talented village. So for everybody in the back end of this system, some of their names are on the scroll you'll see at the end here, but not all of them, trust me. That takes care of Office Hours for today. Thank you so much for spending this part of your morning with us, and we will be back doing the whole thing again tomorrow. Have a great day.
And I was wrong. That Zoom recorder has 8 microphone preamps.
Oh, wow.
So he could do a pretty good job.
Yeah.
Well, that was fun. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Did a great job as always, Laura. It's great to have you on.
Thank you.
I'm pretty excited about that. I think that the little device that works with phones natively is going to open better sound up to a lot of people.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. I know this one did. its predecessors. So now that we got away from micro USB and now it's wireless too, bonus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, no more micro USB. I have a little picture of a micro USB, big international dose.
Yes.
How many years will go by before I throw away my last micro USB cord? There's got to be something that still requires it for charging.
It's going to be a long, long time, Bill.
Yeah.
It took me 10 years to throw away my Apple Talk cables. I kept thinking I'm going to use them for something someday.
Yes.